Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was watching the game in the morning before I didn't get to watch the whole game. I got to watch the beginning of the second half, and the Bears had just scored a touchdown. Packers gave up another score. It was 17-4. I turned off the TV and went, okay, Jay Cutler's going to have a nice 4-touchdown day, and the Packers are going to fall to 1-3. But no, I went on later and looked 38-17. So Chicago never scored after that. Green Bay's defense played outstanding. Huge win for the Packers, one they definitely needed. Going into Soldier Field and beating Bears team that some people think have a real nice shot of winning this division this year with their performances so far. After a stretch, a really hard stretch in the Packers' schedule at the Seahawks, didn't play well at home versus the Jets, and then lost to Detroit, and then this huge victory. I think from here on out, they're going to get a winning record going next week. I think they'll beat Minnesota, and then I see this team being really good from here on out. I think this was one of the trickiest spots in their schedule. Noah, you can agree with me there. And I think this team is going to be headed pretty far after that. In Chicago, I have no idea what to think of them. Week 1, losing to Buffalo, terrible loss. Week 2, getting the victory in San Fran, awesome victory for them. And then Week 3, Monday Night Football, playing really well versus the Jets. And then this Week 4 performance. So obviously what I can infer from this is that they're a great road team and that they're a horrible home team. But we're going to have to see how they play at Carolina and at Atlanta, 2 very hard games in the next 2 weeks. And I see them, I don't know. I was going to say I see them losing both, but honestly, I have no idea what to expect. This is one of those teams that one week they can look amazing, and the next week they look just terrible.
Yeah, it's odd. They looked unstoppable the first couple drives, scoring on the first 3. The real turning point, I don't know if you did you see the end of the first half?
No, I didn't see. I literally just turned it off after Jay Cutler scored.
So there was at the end of the half, of course, Packers are up 21-17. Bears drive down the field, throw it. Martellus Bennett catches it just on the 1-yard line. He turns around, extends the ball, and Micah Hyde, living up to his name, he hid the ball. Micah Hyde hides the ball from the camera. You can't see whether or not it crosses the goal line. The referees rule him down at the 1, and because you can't see whether or not the ball crossed the goal line, they have to mark him down at the 1. The Bears had no timeouts left. The clock expires, and the Packers go in with a 21-17 lead. And then, of course, the turnover from Jay Cutler after a poor throw was deflected by Tramon Williams and intercepted by Clay Matthews. Those were the real turning points in this game. For the Packers, I agree with you. It's a tough start to the schedule. 3 great run defenses, Seattle, New York, and Detroit. Lacey's still yet to prove himself, but it's a tough time when you're a rookie. Sophomore slump is always the tough time of year. But they've got Minnesota and Miami in the next 2 games. Miami has been pleasantly surprising, but I think those are 2 games they're going to be able to win. Carolina, another tough team, and then in New Orleans, Chicago, and Philadelphia right there. But those will be big tests as well. But I think this team will put on a good showing. And they have the luxury of a pretty easy end of the schedule going Atlanta, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, and Detroit. But I like what I've seen from the Packers, and I agree with you. I'm not exactly sure what to think of the Bears. 2 home losses, 2 road wins. I think they're going to split the next 2 games as well. I think this team really has to get used to it. 8 weeks in, I think they're going to be 4-4 at this point. Then they travel to Green Bay. I think this team is a 10-6 team right now, a 9-7, but they've got to, the way they're playing right now, but they've got to get it together because they just really haven't looked that convincing. So big win by the Packers. Another team, really weird game for Blake's Eagles. So the Eagles put up a decent amount of points, and you think, 21 points against the Niners, they must have had a pretty good offensive day. Not so much. In fact, their points, none of them came off their offense. None of them. They had a block punt in the end zone for a touchdown. They had a 53-yard interception return and an 82-yard punt return. And Blake, a really, really odd game, and then getting shut out in the second half. What are your thoughts from your Eagles game against the 49ers?
Honestly, it comes down to the offensive line play. We have some players injured right now at tackle, and that definitely came to be the determiner in this one. Nick Foles, 21 of 43, 2 interceptions, sacked 4 times. He had no time today to make any plays. And then there's LaShawn McCoy. This is a running team, Chip Kelly's offense. The guy has had absolutely no numbers on the season. He scored 1 touchdown and has ran for 175 yards through 4 games. That is just terrible numbers for him. This just proves to play that the offensive line needs to get healthy in order for this Eagles team to really play to its full abilities. They've really lucked out in the first 3 games. I don't know how they were 3-0. They should maybe be like 2-2 or 1-3. I mean, they were trailing by double digits in all of their first 3 games, losing at home to the Jags, and then coming back and winning in effective fashion. But I don't know what to think of this Eagles team so far. All I know is that they were lucky to get the first 3 victories, but this was kind of an awakening moment for this team. They just could not defend the San Francisco pass rush at all.
Yeah, talking about Nick Foles, a guy who last year was a revelation. This year already 4 interceptions and only 6 touchdowns. Not throwing the ball well per se. Now 2 games under 60% completion, 2 games under 50% even, or 2 games under 57%. Tough start to the year for Nick Foles. Do you think the Nick Foles of last year is the guy you can expect to see, or are you not really sure what to expect from Nick Foles going forward this year?
I think he's going to play well. I mean, you have to give credit. They've had a really, really tough 3-game stretch at Indianapolis versus Washington, who's supposed to be really good, but honestly, they look terrible versus the Giants. And then at San Francisco, that was a tough 3-game stretch. Versus Indy and versus Washington, they put up over 30 points, or 30 in the Indy game. But their offenses look good, just not great. Not what we thought they were going to be, not what they were last year. LaShawn McCoy is what we really should be discussing here. The guy has been totally outplayed by Darren Sproles, his backup. Darren Sproles has been getting the touches. He's been getting the touchdowns, and you saw what he did today. Got that beautiful punt return touchdown. He's looked great, and he may take LaShawn McCoy's spot soon if he continues to play the way he's playing.
I mean, Darren Sproles played pretty poorly. I mean, he had the punt return touchdown, but that still doesn't guarantee him a running back spot. I've got to say, I think you're right. The offensive line has played a big factor in this. I think that's one of the big reasons why LaShawn McCoy has been having a tough time. It's tough when you're not getting run blocking. Had decent starts to the season of 74 and 79 yards, but the last 2 games, 39 yards on 29 carries. Abysmal numbers. Those are numbers you expect to see from James Starks. Those aren't good numbers for a guy who is being drafted number 1 overall in a lot of fantasy leagues. A pretty horrible start to the year. The offense against the Niners was nowhere to be found. It's really embarrassing to see how the Eagles have played. 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions in this game, 2 fumbles lost. The Eagles need to turn things around. Let's remember, this is against the Niners, but it hasn't been pretty so far.
No, I think you're hating way too much right now. I can't sit here and listen to this abuse. This is a team that before this game was 3-0 and at one point was leading the San Francisco 49ers, a team
but did you see their
game in the Super Bowl in past 2 seasons, leading them 21-10 on the road, almost about to go 4-0.
But their offense had done nothing. Those were on defensive miscues against a San Francisco team that's been full of offensive miscues this season. It's not like they did something that most teams haven't already done to this team.
I get you hating on the offense today, but, I mean, last week the offense looked great versus Washington.
Well, Washington's a horrible defensive team. They just got blown up by the Giants. It's not hard to put up a bunch of points.
Yeah, 30 points versus the Colts in Indianapolis.
The Colts aren't a good defensive team. Look, I think the Eagles are a good team. I just haven't seen anything out of the ordinary. They've gone up against weak defensive teams, and they haven't been able to do it defensively. The problem is you're going up against good teams like San Francisco, like Seattle. You're going up against a great offensive team in Green Bay. I don't know if they can hold up through all of those points. But I do agree with you. If their offensive line can get healthy, then I think that they are back to the Eagles of last year. I think that's really what they've got to do, because when your offensive line isn't playing well, it's tough to be a good offensive team. I think the Eagles have the talent to be one of the top 3 offenses in the NFL, without a doubt. I mean, you look at what they have player-wise. You've got Macklin, you've got Cooper, you have, of course, you've got Matthews, then you've got McCoy, Sproles, Foles. The weapons are all there. I think it's the offensive line. I think that's the real X factor, and if that really gets better, I think they have a great shot of winning this division. I still think they'll win this division. I think they're still the best team by a good margin. I think they have a good shot of being able to make it past the first round in the playoffs, and they'll definitely be a dangerous team if that offensive line can pick up the play.
Thus far, I see them going 11-5 with the start they've had. Next 2 games, they need to win those 2 to set themselves up with a 5-1 record. I think going into the bye week at 5-1, that would be really, really good for the Eagles heading into a tough stretch at Arizona and at Houston. But so far, 11-5, I see them playing the season out, and that would definitely guarantee a victory. In what's been thus far, the NFC East has been totally unpredictable.
Yeah, well, Packers, Eagles will definitely have some fun that week, which will be in Green Bay. We've got a little bit to go before week 11. A little bit. It's pretty much a pretty good amount. Really quickly, we're going to go with just the best team you've seen thus far. Maybe not the best team you think at the end of the year, but right now, what team has impressed you the most?
I got to go right now with the guys from Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Bengals are one of the only undefeated teams in the NFL right now. I believe it's them and who's the other team? Gosh, I'm totally...
I think it's Arizona?
Yeah, it's Arizona. Okay. So right now, this Bengals team, everybody hates on Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's played outstanding thus far. The guy's been able to throw for 722 yards, 2 touchdowns. The running game also is really good. You got Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill, the bruiser out of LSU, and then you have A.J. Green. This team has looked great. Their victories are all quality, other than maybe Tennessee, which they blew out. At Baltimore, winning versus Atlanta, who's pretty good. Then winning versus Tennessee. Getting the bye week before New England is really clutch because New England is going to be on a short week. I see them actually getting the upset and beating New England next week on Sunday Night Football to go 4-0 on the season. I see that happening. I think this team is really, really good, and they're definitely going to win the division this year.
Okay, I'm going to go with Arizona, the other undefeated team. Big wins against San Francisco and San Diego. I think this team has a great shot of doing well this year. They come off the bye next week against Denver. That'll be a big test. If they can somehow get that upset in Mile High, this is a team to watch. I think Denver is on upset alert against a great defensive team. I think they have been really impressive thus far. Really quick now, we're going to go with a real or fluke, whether or not this team is real or not. Just a quick little explanation. And we are going to start with
Houston.
With Houston, yes.
Yeah, real or fluke. What am I saying? Right now, I mean, this team has looked really good to start the season. Right now, 3-1. Their only loss to the Giants. We thought the Giants were horrible, but then they blew out Washington. So Giants might be average. So their only loss is at New York, and that's not a bad loss. It's going to be interesting how they play next week in our big game versus Dallas. If they fall, they'll go 3-2, then play Indy. So far, I see this team being real, but not at a playoff level yet.
Okay, Arizona now. Really quickly. Houston, I think they've been real thus far, but I think they're a fluke for the season. I don't think they can maintain this level. Arizona, I'm going to go with real. This team has a lot of talent. They've got Tyrann Mathieu. They've got Patrick Peterson, debatably one of the best cornerbacks, if not the best cornerback in the NFL. I think, though, Carson Palmer's been out. You've seen they've still been able to maintain the same level with Drew Stanton at quarterback and, of course, Andre Ellington. I think this team is definitely a contender. Blake, what do you think about Arizona?
Arizona so far has really impressed me. 3-0. The victory versus the Chargers has looked really good now because the Chargers are undefeated ever since the loss, and also beating a divisional foe in San Francisco. And when San Francisco needed that victory, they got the W. And then at New York, now that victory looks a lot better. Going into the bye week, I know, at Denver, that's going to be really interesting. We're going to get to see if this team's real or a fluke, but thus far they've been real. Okay,
and now I go on to Detroit. I'm going to go with a fluke. Look, they got the win over my Packers, and that's all. I got to give credit to them there, and they've had some pretty good weeks. But you go back to that Panthers game. They were dismantled 24-7, and they won the game against the Packers at home. Packers just were really out of the ordinary. Their secondary isn't very good. I don't think this Detroit team can hang on for the rest of the year. Bills and Vikings should be winnable, but then they've got games against the Saints and the Falcons. They've got Cardinals, Patriots, and Bears, and they end the season away at the Packers and away at the Bears. I just don't think this team ends up being in the race for the division. I think that they are a fluke.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this team, got to agree with you on the fluke status. I think next week they'll win versus Buffalo. That'll push the record to 4-1, and they have a great shot at winning versus Minnesota. They could be 5-1 going into Week 7 versus New Orleans, and that'll be a home game as well. But honestly, this is